Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taste the Future webinar. My name is Susan Levin-Abir, and I'm the Director of Development for the American Technion Society in South Palm Beach, Florida, and Atlanta, Georgia. Unfortunately, Amanda Crown could not be here today to moderate our program, so I was asked to step in. First and foremost, Happy New Year to all of you, and thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to be a part of this program because along with all of you, I have a curiosity about food technology and what it will mean to all of us, both on a global scale and at our very own dinner tables. The Technion is at the forefront of the movement to address global challenges of climate change, human health, and nutrition. It recently announced the establishment of a world-class multidisciplinary research center for sustainable proteins. The Technion Sustainable Protein Research Center is the first of its kind in the world. It will connect dozens of researchers from more than 10 different academic departments at the Technion. By providing alternatives to animal-based foods, the center will work to mitigate the impact that animal farming has on the environment, including land and water pollution, deforestation, greenhouse gas emissions, and foodborne illnesses. Additionally, its research will reach far beyond food, as it will impact human health, sustainability, and global water usage. Today, we will be hearing from just a few of the excellent researchers involved in this center. Professor Yoav Livney is the director of Technion's Sustainable Protein Research Center and head of the Lab of Biopolymers for Food and Health in the Faculty of Biotechnology and Food Engineering. He is an expert on the physical chemistry of biopolymers, nanodelivery systems for drugs and nutraceuticals, and alternative food proteins. Associate Professor Maya Davidovich heads the Laboratory of Food Materials Engineering in the Faculty of Biotechnology and Food Engineering. Among other things, Maya's lab develops oleogels, gel-like alternatives created from plant oils that can be used to replace unhealthy fats in foods like butter, cheese, and red meat. And Neubauer Assistant Professor Luai Khoury is head of the Protein Materials and Mechanics Lab in the Faculty of Materials Science and Engineering. His research focuses on harnessing the inherent properties of proteins in order to drive significant advancements in biomaterials. Thank you, Yoav, Maya, and Luai for being with us today to talk about this very important topic. Viewers, if you would like to utilize closed captioning for this program, please click on the closed caption icon on your Zoom screen and then select Show Subtitle. If you do not see the closed caption icon, it may be under the word More. Additionally, we will have time for questions after all our guests speak. Please use the Q&A function on the webinar screen to submit your questions, and we'll get to as many as we can. Yoav is now joining us from his sabbatical in Vancouver. Good morning, Yoav.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. So let me briefly tell you about myself. I'm originally a graduate of the Biotechnology and Food Engineering Department in 1990. I then spent several years in the food industry in Strauss Dairies. They sent me to do a master's degree in Madison, Wisconsin for a couple of years. Then I worked 4 more years in Strauss Dairies as a cheese product development manager. And then I moved back to the Technion, did a PhD in the same department, food engineering and biotechnology. And then I did a postdoc at the University of Guelph in Canada. And since 2004, I'm a faculty member at the Department of Biotechnology and Food Engineering. And my research is focusing on food biopolymers, delivery systems, and recently with a focus on alternative proteins. Right now, as was said, I was in Vancouver doing a sabbatical, and my research here is also focusing on another aspect of alternative protein based on fungi. In the last couple of years, 2-3 years actually, I've been working on a project which I'll tell you now about, the Sustainable Protein Research Center. So let me share my presentation with you. Okay, so Technion Sustainable Protein Research Center, it was initiated also by Professor Avi Spiegelman from our department and David Shemtov together with me. And we have been doing it in cooperation with the Good Food Institute, the Israeli branch, and they've been very helpful throughout the process in the last 2-3 years. So why do we need the center? The global demand for meat and animal-based food is on the rise. It's rising even faster than the rise in global population. And that has devastating global consequences. Intensive animal farming is the #1 cause of deforestation, both for cattle ranching, but more so for feed production, agriculture. It is the #1 user of freshwater resources on the planet. It is producing about 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which caused the global warming effect. Manure and fertilizers cause land and water pollution. And a very important thing, which not many people are aware of, that the animal industry is the #1 user of antibiotics. About 70% of all antibiotics being produced on the planet are used by the animal industry. This leads to development of antibiotic-resistant pathogens, which in turn come back to us and are expected or anticipated to be, or we're afraid they will become the first cause of death or the leading cause of death, human mortality in a few decades. Something we need to do something to change. There are also other risks of non-communicable diseases related to eating animal-based food. And last but not least, animal welfare is also a very important concern. Now, there are 3 main approaches to replace animal-based foods. The classical and the oldest one is plant-based alternatives. The recent and exciting one is cell or tissue culture-based alternatives and fermentation-based alternatives. Now, in all of these 3 technologies, technological innovation is really a key enabler for this industry. Now, to accelerate the progress in all of these fields, there's needs for funding for research to address the current knowledge gaps. And there is a real need for a research center to promote and coordinate all of the activities of research and to be a source for the industry also to come for answers. And eventually, all of these technologies we're developing need to be commercialized and scaled up. And scaling up is another important challenge that requires more research. Our aims is really to achieve tasty end products, which will also be in competitive prices. If they're not as cheap as the regular animal-based foods, nobody will eat them. So we need to do that, and there are great challenges to overcome to achieve those very challenging goals. And so for that, we need a lot of fundamental research to address all those knowledge gaps. Now, Technion has the strategic blend of science, engineering, and medicine, which places it in an ideal position to tackle these challenges effectively. Now, we've been doing a survey all over campus, and we've found more than 30 researchers from 11 different faculties, not just food, but many other faculties, like we have people from medicine, we have people from electrical engineering, from data science, and of course, biology and other fields, mechanical engineering, who are interested in joining this very important and multidisciplinary effort. And the goal really of the center is to promote research and give the researchers the means, financial means, and tools and equipment, and also facilities. We're now constructing the Carasso Food Innovation Center, which is going to be the main building or the main facility where much of the activities of the Sustainable Protein Research Center will be. The Sustainable Protein Research Center is going to be a virtual organization, a campus-wide organization to coordinate the activities, but the Carasso is like the physical location for much of the activities, but not all. Many of the activities will happen all over campus. So Technion Sustainable Protein Research Center is really a pioneer. It's the world's first academic sustainable protein research center, and we're very proud of that. It will foster strong interdisciplinary collaboration. It will attract new, talented new faculty members in related fields, in all of the faculties that are taking part in this. And it will provide exceptional training opportunities, both for students and for industry personnel. We need to build the workforce in this field, which requires a lot of new hands and brains to work on. It will cultivate entrepreneurship and drive commercialization, and it will support the industry and also the regulators and the public. So the challenge is really the lacking knowledge to address the global challenges in the food supply, sustainability, and health. And our aim is really to position the Technion as a global leader in alternative protein research. And we have a distinctive opportunity to create really cutting-edge research center with the backing of the Good Food Institute, the government of Israel, and other stakeholders. And we are now collaborating with current Technion initiatives, the sustainability and the human health frontiers, which will help us and already helping us in our activities to maximize the impact. So the time is now, and we're really trying to seize the moment and make a big change. I will briefly tell you about one project from my own lab, which falls within this scope of activities of the research of the Sustainable Protein Research Center. My lab is, you said, it's the Lab of Biopolymers for Food and Health. And we are now developing fish analogues made from algae, algal protein and polysaccharides. And we're using 3D printing to form the fish shape and texture. And the idea is that really we will not have to catch or kill any fish, and we can still enjoy fish in the future. So with the 3D printing technology, we can really form nice shapes of fish fillets like you see in the picture here. And we have taken several algae like Gracilaria, which is a red seaweed. We've extracted the protein from it, and then we use the 3D bioprinter to form shapes of fish fillets. This is only in the beginning. We still have quite a long way to go, but that's the idea of this project. So join us in this really exciting endeavor to make a better world for our future generation in the Technion Sustainable Protein Research Center, SPRC. And thank you for your attention. I'd be glad to answer a question you may later have.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Maya. It's very nice to be here, and thank you very much for joining us. So today I would like to talk about the work that I've been doing in my lab, and also to introduce myself a little bit. I did my PhD and all my degrees in chemical engineering here in the Technion, and then I decided to move a little bit and shift a little bit into the food industry. Why? I think the food industry is fascinating because we're talking about something that we can implement, and we can change the world by changing what we eat on our plate, and it's very directly connected between the science and what will happen in the future and what will happen tomorrow during dinner in my house. So the research in my lab is basically something related to what you see here. So you heard today a little bit from Yoav about the problems that we facing related to animal-based products, and more specifically to cows or any kind of meat product. So if we think about replacing something like that, we have to think about what we can do in order to mimic this kind of textures using a variety of solutions. So currently, if we look at the industry and we look at our shelf, we can see something like that. This is not very appealing. I don't know about you. If I'll go back to the first slide and this slide, you can see that something is missing. And actually what's missing is that. This is actually not very popular component, but it's a very crucial component. We're talking about the fats and oils that are responsible for the texture and the juiciness of our products. So if we think about fats and oils, we're talking about triacylglycerols, which comprise 3 fatty acids connected to glycerol backbone. And the fatty acid can be classified into 2 main groups. We're talking about saturated and trans fat, which have high melting temperature at room temperature and therefore are solid at room temperature. On the other side, we can talk about unsaturated fatty acid, which has low melting temperature and therefore they are liquid at room temperature, and we can find them in liquid oils. But when we think about this component with respect to nutritional value, we'll have to think about how they will affect our diet or our health. We know already that we need to eliminate the consumption of trans fat. We need to minimize or limit the consumption of saturated fat. And also we have to consume unsaturated fatty acids because they are good for our health. So we have some kind of confusing or a debate between these components. We want to consume saturated fats because they produce nice textures and they produce the juiciness that we're looking for. But on the other hand, we are supposed to consume unsaturated fatty acids, which are liquid at room temperature. So how can we replace the unhealthy saturated fat with the unsaturated fatty acids that we should consume? So the solution is actually there. That's what we're doing in my lab. We are working on oleogels. Oleogels are oil-based gels, meaning that we are solidifying the liquid oils using physical approach. We're not changing the chemical composition of these oils, meaning that we're leaving them at unsaturated composition. But we are solidifying it using a matrix, similar to other gels that we're familiar with that I'm going to talk about a little bit later today. So we can produce a variety of textures, colors, and appearance. You can see here some of the examples of the solution that we have in our lab. But if we think about these oleogels, we can improve these oleogels a little bit further by implementing 2 phases into the system. And meaning that we can introduce water into the system, producing biphasic system. And more specifically, we're trying to produce new textures by combining oleogel with hydrogels. Hydrogels are more common gels, and you are probably familiar with them. Hydrogels are water-based gels that most of us are familiar with through this food product. We are all familiar with gelatin, Jello. It's actually in hydrogel where we take gelatin, heat it up with water, and then cool it down to room temperature, and then we have these very nice textures. So if we want to combine oleogel with hydrogel, we can produce a very nice system that you can see here termed bigel, meaning that we have 2 gels connected together to formulate the final texture. We've done a little bit of research on bigels in my lab, and here you can see the microstructure of bigels. On the one side, we have the water phase, where we were able to implement proteins, water-soluble protein into the system through the water phase in the system. On the other side, we have the oil phase, meaning oleogels. And when we combine them together, we obtain the image on the right side of the screen, where you can see the oleogel and the oleogel droplets surrounded by hydrogel matrix. And here you can also see the appearance of these gels, which is I think it's appealing. And you can think about combination or application for this kind of textures. If we compare this microstructure to other component, here you can see an image taken for beef fat inside a matrix of proteins in beef, I would say emulsified meat. And you can see the fat globules surrounded by protein matrix, which is very similar to what you see in the microstructure here in our bigels. when we look at this system under the microscope, we can see a very interesting behavior. You can see the oleogel droplet, again, embedded in a matrix of protein around it. And you can see on the left how it looks like when you cut these sausages and you look inside. So what can we do with this system? First of all, we compare the system appearance and melting behavior. Here you can see on the left, we have the biogel compared to beef fat, pure beef fat that we taken out of steaks or any kind of meat product. And we cook them to see how it behaves. And you can see that it behaves really nicely. But more importantly, I want you to look at the nutritional value of this product. And you can see that we have 15% protein, plant protein in this biogel, which is very unique for this kind of fat that we're producing. And when we looked at this this protein content, we thought that maybe our fat-like system can be a product by itself. And therefore, we tried to fry this sausage or this fat, and we can see that it behaves very similar to any kind of sausage. And it can blow your mind with suggestion what we can do with this texture. And you can see here that something that looks like, I don't know, halloumi cheese or any kind of cheese or chicken, for instance. So we have a variety of solutions. The next example that I would like to talk about is actually a collaboration between 3 faculty members here in our department. We have Professor Makhlouf, who's an expert on tissue engineering, Professor Fishman, who's an expert on enzymatic processes, and myself specializing on fat replacers. And actually, this project was funded by the GFI, and we aim to formulate or to try to find a new technology to produce cultured meat. So if we talk about cultured meat, we need to understand what it is. Cultured meat is the concept of taking biopsy out of cow and growing the steak or the meat outside in the lab. So if we want to mimic the behavior of meat, we have to think about 2 major components. We have to think about the muscle cells, which are responsible for the protein content, the water content, and other ingredients. While on the other side, we have to think about the fat in the system, which is responsible for the juiciness, the texture, and also the nutritional value related to fat. So the concept was to try to proliferate or create cell-based microcarriers that will be able to produce high amount of cells in small quantities, in small spaces, I would say, and to combine it with fat that is produced based on oleogels. And then we were able to produce nice results or nice product, the minced meat and the thick cut, using enzymatic processes. And you can see that we were able to formulate by the multidisciplinary combination of our 3 PIs to create a whole solution for the issue of cultured meat. Here you can see the cells, the microcarriers are in a bioreactor. You can see them flowing around and growing nicely. And you can see on the bottom examples of microcarriers where you can see in green the cells growing and proliferate nicely. They are in green because they are alive. And the idea was to try to implement and to try to increase, to scale up the production of the cell microcarriers in order to produce cultured meat in mass production. The next step was obviously to create the edible oleogel particles. And here you can see in red the particles where they were coated with protein in order to allow enzymatic cross-linking of these particles with the microcarriers with the cell in order to produce the final product that I've been talking about. So here I have some examples of prototypes that were created in the lab. I know it's not there yet. We need to do a little bit of tuning related to the color, but you can see that we were able to produce nice prototypes that are able to replace the animal-based product. And we can see here emulsified sausage, meat patty, and we try different techniques to create these patties. But I think we're getting there, and I think we will have the time to get there eventually and create these nice solutions for cultured meat or for animal-based product. But in order to convince you a little bit further, and I hope that you will be convinced by seeing the next video, here you can see the mini hamburgers that we're creating using our our cultured meat with our oleogel system. And here you can see that it's frying really nicely. And hopefully we will have a solution that will be viable and able to for mass production for the audience. So thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you have a nice evening or afternoon. Thank you very much. So the next speaker will be another faculty member here from the Technion, Professor Luai Khoury from the Department of Material Engineering. So thank you, Luai, for joining us, and enjoy the talk.
Thank you, Maya. And good evening, good morning, everyone. And as Maya mentioned, my name is Luai Khoury, and I'm a Neubauer Assistant Professor at the Material Science and Engineering Department here at the Technion. I did all my degrees at Ben Gurion University at the Negev. Then after my PhD, I moved to USA, to Wisconsin, Milwaukee, to physics department, where I specialized there in biophysics, single molecules, and then protein-based materials. And then after COVID, in March 2021, I joined the Technion. And since that time, there's only one question that is driving all my research together with my research group. And the question is, how can we synthesize biocompatible Okay, so since I joined the Technion in March 2021, there is one question that driving all my research group together with me is, and the question is, how can we synthesize biocompatible, biologically and chemically diverse, and responsive smart natural materials? And during our research and study, we found that proteins is the answer. Proteins are macromolecules that exist in nature, and they are essential. They are responsible for many essential processes in our body, such as digesting food, cell signaling, and many more. And what is exciting about proteins, that these nanomolecules are inherently biocompatible, biologically and chemically diverse, and they can respond to various external triggers such as light, biomolecules, pH, force, and many more. So what are we trying to do in my group is to utilize all these unique properties, such as the biocompatibility, the diversity, the biochemical structure diversity, and the responsiveness of these molecules to make a new class of materials. We call it smart functional protein-based materials. And these materials will be used for many applications, such as drug delivery system, medical devices, and many more in the future. But also in my group, and we all know that food is science. Thus, this thing inspired us for many research projects in my group. One of them is we were inspired by espresso making process to make or synthesize protein hydrogel microparticles. What was interesting about this method is that this method preserved the integrity and the functionality of the proteins. As you can see them here, they are still fluorescent. We also were inspired by the bamba. Bamba is an Israeli snack, very famous snack. It's made of peanut butter, but it inspired us to make our protein-based sponges. And these sponges are highly porous, lightweight, and they are constructed of 100% of proteins. One more interesting thing about these sponges, that the proteins are still active, they're still functional. So imagine you can use these sponges for many applications. And the most important thing about it, it's also like bamba, but it's better because it's 100% of protein, so it's edible too. The third thing that was also inspiring us is our stomach. Our stomach, the environment of our stomach is acidic, and it also has enzymes to digest the food, to digest the proteins that we eat. So we were inspired by this concept to develop a protein-based hydrogel actuators. As you can see here in the movie, one second, whenever we take our protein-based hydrogel material and put them in acidic environment, like our stomach, the flower closed its petals. And whenever it moves to the duodenum, when the pH is 7.4, this flower opens the petals. So we can use the food and the food processing thing that happens in our body to inspire us to develop robots made out of proteins. But most of these advancements that you see and the progress that you see here in my presentation and during the last 2 years in the Technion, also we faced many challenges. One of them is that to make a protein-based material, you need too many proteins. The problem is that proteins are difficult to extract and not that stable. Imagine you take a steak out of the fridge and you put it on a table in your kitchen for 1 day. After 1 day, it's not edible anymore. The same problem we have it with protein. The third challenge is that protein-based materials are very soft. The characterization methods do not fit the requirements. We need to reinvent some tools so we can be able to characterize the properties of these unique materials. The fourth challenge is also that people all the time say it when I just present this topic, is that protein-based materials are way behind polymer materials. So why do we need proteins? But we all know, guys, that we live in the living materials era. Living materials mean that materials that are based on biological systems, proteins, biomolecules, and many more. And one more thing that I want to mention here, that each protein is a polymer, but not each polymer is a protein. So how can we face these challenges together with all our strategy that exists in the lab? Recently, we know that food connects people. And we know also that food connects scientists. They love to eat with each other, together all the time. So recently, the initiative of building a new center here in the Technion, the Sustainable Protein Research Center, can help us face many of these challenges that I mentioned before. One, it's a hub for protein research here at the Technion, so we can use it to make our research go many steps forward. It will include a lot of equipment and capabilities. That's what we need. We need people to help us to reinvent some tools to be able to characterize these materials. Third, and one of the most important things, brainstorming, project leadership, and collaborations with the leaders in the field, as Maya just mentioned before. And the fourth topic that we also is also important about this center is funding. As we all know, money is a cornerstone to propel our research and to publish it in high impact factor journals and to make also high impact research in the future. So at the end, I just want to say, please stay hungry, be patient to wait for our discoveries in the future. And I want to tell you to stay with a taste of more. Thank you.
Thank you, Yoav, Maya, and Luai for these fascinating presentations. I think we've all learned a thing or two today about what to expect in this innovative and creative field of food technology. It's really amazing to think just how far we've come since the days of our ancestors as hunters and gatherers. You've just given us an amazing opportunity to look behind the curtain of our collective future. I'm sure we'll have many thought-provoking questions from our audience. Viewers, please give us a moment while we bring our speakers back. Again, please use the Q&A button on your webinar screen to post your questions, and we'll get to them as many as we can. Okay, I see that everybody is here. So I'd like to start off with a question of my own, going out to the whole panel. Some say that electric cars are only a stepping stone to the next incarnation of vehicles, which will be hydrogen powered. Do you see food technology in the same way? Are lab-based meats and proteins stepping stones to other emerging technologies, like maybe getting all our nutrition from a single nano pill? Maya, you want to go first?
I would love to. So definitely yes. I'm not sure about the pill because we're all like to enjoy our food. We're all going for dinners outside and enjoying food outside. So I'm not sure we will enjoy eating a pill, but definitely it's the basics for the future. And I'm guessing that all the environment issue must be considered, and we have to think about the future of our kids and their kids and their kids, etc.
Thank you. Anybody else on the panel? Yoav?
Sure, yeah. I think it's a great question, and definitely the science that goes into food also has additional impacts. You've heard Luai's talk, how proteins from food can also be used for other applications. And so there's definitely various spin-offs for the food science. But I think I've been in the food area since 1990, and there's never been such exciting times in the field like today. I mean, the fact that we are, as the world, and particularly the scientists in the field, realize that this is now a time where food science can make a global impact. It is so empowering and so motivating to be creative and to do really groundbreaking science, because we feel this is our time to make a change in the world. And the problems are so huge, and it takes such a great collaborative effort to change the food system from the basis. I mean, we are also used to eating animals, and we've realized that this cannot go on forever. We are ruining our planet, and we really need to change things dramatically. And people will not just give up eating animals so easily. They love to do it. It's a cultural and habitual thing. And so we really have to give them good alternatives, which will be at least as tasty and at least as cheap, so they can do it with us and do that change. And I think this change is also a great opportunity to improve food. There are many components in the food we eat that are unhealthy. And as you heard in Maya's talk, saturated fats are unhealthy. And when we replace them with Maya's oleogels, it's a great opportunity to change the bad fat with the good fat. And so there are many other examples like vitamins and other macro and micronutrients that we can replace when we have the opportunity to completely engineer the food from the start and come up with the analogues, which will be not just tasty, but also health promoting. And so I think I agree with Maya. People will not start eating pills instead of food. We all love it and enjoy food. And our challenge is really to allow people to still enjoy food while presenting novel solutions to overcome all those huge global challenges.
Thank you, Yoav. Luai, do you have anything to add to that?
I think I just one more thing to add. I think pills will help in specific places, for example, pilots or travelers, so they can carry their amazing food with them and they don't need to carry the whole weight of the steak or something like that, so they can carry the pill and eat it during they are traveling. I think it's an amazing idea in the future. That's what I want to add.
Great, thank you. Thank you all. So we have a question from an anonymous attendee who asked, how does a plant-based food solution cause less harm to the environment than the current system? Are we not just substituting one problem for another? Who would like to take that question?
I can try. So the conversion factor between a protein from an animal and a protein from a plant, if you think about beef, for example, it takes about 20 kilograms of plant protein for 1 kilogram of meat or of meat protein or beef protein, which means that we need a lot of plants to grow lots of plants and large areas of fields of crops and water to be able to produce that 1 kilogram. And that is not sustainable. That is definitely shown by all models and all the scientists in the field that this cannot go on any longer. I mean, we can continue several more decades, but if we continue and we need to provide a growing population, this will not be possible. So if we go directly to the plant, it's definitely a one-to-one exchange, and we need about 20, a factor of 20 or so less in terms of amounts of areas and water and all that. But we also, as I mentioned, we also will not need to produce so much antibiotics, which is a big problem. We'll not need so much, we will not have so much pollution and effects on the greenhouse gas emissions, which we all see every day in the news, how devastating the results of global warming is. So definitely changing to plant-based and other alternatives, which we discussed earlier, is the only way to go.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Our next question looks like it's going to go directly to Maya. Maya, one of our viewers would like to know, how would I know that oleogels are any safer or healthier than, say, trans fats?
First of all, we are producing the oleogels and we're checking that we don't have trans fats. And originally in our vegetable oils that we're using, we don't have trans fat, so we are not anticipating that it will be produced during the production because we're not using harsh conditions. And we can also check it. Obviously, every food product that we are developing is going through a series of examinations, and we're checking the content of what we're producing so we can check it. But I'm not anticipating that something like that will be produced during the production.
Thank you. Okay, Luai, there's a question that somebody would like to know. How does someone in your position transfer their knowledge and apply it to your own field? All this knowledge of food technology, how did you learn to do that?
First of all, thank you for the question. And we are inspired by the procedures of making the food, like emulsifications and many other processes. Second, we are not using the protein for food. We are using the protein and the properties of the proteins that are being found or discovered to use them to generate our materials that can be used in various bio applications, such as drug delivery and tissue engineering and robotics now, and soft robotics. So that's what we exactly is doing. So we are inspired by protein to make our materials, inspired by the unique properties of proteins to make soft robotics that can act, work or function inside our body, because they are already, our body is already knowing these proteins. So why we don't know, why we don't form machines that can function in our body with these proteins? So that's our viewpoint.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. This question is open to the panel. One of our attendees would like to know, how does engineered food help people with food-related diseases like celiac? How does it help with controlling obesity? Anybody?
Step in. So if we think about what we can do with food engineering, we can engineer a food that can consist amount of drugs or any kind of health promoting ingredients in order to help sick or any kind of illness. We could also use variety of textures and variety of composition in order to produce this kind of effect. So definitely it's possible, and I think engineering is the best way to do it because we know what we're aiming for, so we can try to mimic that or try to understand how we can solve this issue by using engineering approach.
Okay, great. Here's a question, and anyone can be free to answer this one. I was told by a biologist that using bioreactors also cause waste and they can't be recycled easily. Is that correct? And is there any thinking about how to create better or recyclable bioreactors?
I will try answer it. Of course, almost any process has pipe or side streams, and there are definitely also in fermentation processes, there are challenges on what to do with the materials you're not using eventually. And so there are ways to consider the process, in a holistic approach, and to try to realize what are the various side streams you would be creating, and to realize what their compositions are and what could they be done with. For example, in a recent process I've been developing where I needed the proteins from a certain microorganisms, I realized that when I extract the protein from the interior of the cell, I will be left out with the cell membrane as a waste. And I said that's really would be a pity if I waste that. And then I realized that cell membrane is made of surface active materials, which can be used as surfactants, as emulsifiers. And then I can use those membrane materials to emulsify the fat to add into my final product. Like Maya mentioned, we have the protein or the muscle part of the product of animal-based analog, and we have the oil part. And the oil part needs always some emulsifier or some surface active materials to communicate between the surface of the oil, which doesn't like water, and the water phase. So we need those surface active materials to enwrap and emulsify the fat. And this way I found an elegant solution what to do with my previous waste and make it into a valuable added value component in the final product. And then I'm left with hardly any side stream of my process. So it's really our challenge as engineers to think about it and not just think about the final value added component we need to produce, but also on all of the by streams, and to think about the global impact of our process and to the environment. And so that's the way we need to think more in the future. We definitely have to think in this way in the future. Okay,
great. Luai, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree with most of the things that you have just mentioned. It's not also the sustainability of this process is that the whole topic of the center. So that's why we are going to make this center. So I think Yoav is addressed most of the issues in a very right way. I don't have anything to add now. I'm good.
Okay. So here's an interesting question. Will any of you be doing any research, or do you know anybody on campus who's doing any research about how people perceive these lab-created food products? Given that many are skeptical about genetically modified foods, a lot of people might question whether creating alternative foods is desirable.
Well, I can mention that, sorry, briefly. I say that at the Technion, while we screened the various faculty members we have on campus, we realized that we have three or four experts on psychology and on consumer psychology, consumer aspects, and on science communication. And those experts are, some of them are already doing research on perception of those products and how would, for example, there is already an ongoing study looking at, does the sustainability aspect of a food play a role in purchase decision of consumers? So we're already looking into that, and we will be looking further and deeper into those questions with the current Technion faculty members, because those are essential questions. The implementation and widespread acceptance of these technologies is really a challenge, and we really need to think about the consumer aspects and to realize what the consumer is thinking and what is troubling the consumer, what are the fears of the consumer, to really address them scientifically and bring the good scientific answers on the table when we are presenting our final products.
Okay, thank you, Yoav. Okay, we have time for a final question, so I'm going to give it to the entire panel. Firstly, do we need to fear bacteria in the process of making cultured meat? If so, will cultured meat still need antibiotics? And secondly, while scaling up the process of making cultured meat, is there a fear of when culturing so many cells in massive quantities of creating an environment that encourages cancer cells?
So I will step into the first question. So if you think about cultured meat, we're talking about a very, I would say, clean environment, because in order to grow these cells, we have to maintain a very clean environment in order for the cells to grow. They will die if we will not do it. So with respect to the antibiotics, I will think that maybe this will be a solution or less problematic issue with respect to cultured meat. If we think about other aspects of cultured meat, about cancer, but you have to think about, we're talking about bioreactor that can be, I would say, monitored through the production, so we are able to monitor the cells that are growing inside and to detect contamination and also the production of cancer cells or something like that.
Okay, thank you, Maya. And I want to thank you all so much for this enlightening conversation today. It's absolutely thrilling to see the Technion's expansive culture of collaboration leading to cross-faculty, multidisciplinary approaches to solving the world's greatest problems. If you'd like to find out how to support this innovative center, please reach out to your local ATS representative or send an email to info@ats.org. Thank you all for joining us today. This program has been recorded and you will receive a link to it in the next few days. Please feel free to share with family and friends and help us spread the word about the great things happening at the Technion. Wishing you all the best for a sweet, happy, and peaceful new year.